So we're talking
Because
about pink Himalayan salt. We're talking about ways to really amplify our water. But it's a place for wellness call. We got to talk about increasing energy and reducing stress, right? But I think somebody put it in the chat. Charlotte. Yeah, Charlotte mentioned it. You can Amazon it, Andrew. Like you can Amazon it. But I've talked with a couple people that actually carry pink Himalayan salt with them just about everywhere they go because they're adding it to their water. If they travel, they're taking it with them. But it's going to allow your body to absorb things. And like Brian said, and what you'll probably do, you'll probably drink it for the first time and be like, ugh, like, why am I drinking salt water? It's certainly an acquired taste. Over these last couple of weeks, something happened to me where just like Brian said, like I now crave it and it tastes really good. I put a little warm water in there so it's not ice cold, so it's not shocking my system. It's more of like lukewarm room temperature water. But yeah, a little pink salt, a little lemon or lime. And one thing I'm curious to talk with him about, because I just learned a lot more about this. He talked about how the effects of the salt, or excuse me, of the lemon and the acidity level, right? Well, it turns out there's actually a reaction. If anybody knows this, then let me know. We all think naturally lemons, limes, acid, and it's going to increase the acidity of your pH. But what it does is the opposite. It actually affects the alkalinity. Yeah, thank you, Amanda. It affects the alkalinity, and we want a more alkaline pH in our body. We don't want a high acidity in our body. Amanda, can you expand on that a little bit since you know what I was talking about there? Alkalinity versus acidity in the body and why something acidic like a lemon or a lime would actually do the opposite.
Well, I mean, I can say a little bit from my personal experience. I would say I used to get like a lot of like, I felt like acid, I don't know, maybe like almost like heartburn, things like that in my late 30s. And I started looking into acidity versus alkaline. And so, for example, like I love to drink coffee, but it tends to be pretty acidic. So I put like a really, really teeny bit of baking soda, like I'm talking maybe a half of a fingernail amount in my coffee, and it actually makes it alkaline. Um, Things like grapefruit juice is another thing that's alkaline. And if you look at I think it's the Seventh Day Adventists. They actually follow an alkaline diet and they have no cancer because cancer cannot exist in an alkaline environment. So there's definitely a lot of things you can do to improve your alkalinity. Things like dairy are highly acidic, but um, disease and things like that, it actually occurs more often in an acidic environment. So it's just something I looked into, and it definitely helped me putting more alkaline things in my diet. Like instead of dairy, I would use stuff like coconut milk or almond milk or things like that. So yeah, it's definitely worth looking into. I have like a essential oil, like a lemon and lime, and I just put drops of that in my water.
Smart. Yeah, that's super smart. Um, yeah, it's really fascinating what has been found with cancer, with Alzheimer's, with a lot of the four horsemen that Dr. Peter Attia talked about, with some of the main reasons as to why people die, especially at an earlier age than maybe they should, with the acidic versus alkaline diet. And I posted a doctor's name in there, Dr. Sebi, Sebi. He was one of a very early founder of an alkaline diet, and they actually locked him up. He went to jail, and he was vastly changing people's lives through his alkaline diet. There's a place called Usha, Honduras, where there's this volcano that I was almost going to go to in February, but the waters there are highly alkaline. They do an alkaline diet, and it's really helping people with curing a lot of the ailments that we talked about. So yeah, I mean, I'm glad that Andrew, thank you for bringing that up. You know, one of the points on the 15-point plan is learning. One of the ways that we can learn is through podcasts, and we have no shortage of podcasts with our network, right? Like Brian Gubernick's No Days Off podcast is phenomenal. It drops every day, Monday through Friday. It's anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes, and there's just these nuggets every day of ways to get better. Speaking of podcasts, Jacqueline, I got Jacqueline Smith here with me, guys. If you don't know Jacqueline, she is a phenomenal individual in the real estate world, in the health world, in the relationship, parenting, spouse world. Like I look up to her so much. And you guys have heard over these last couple of weeks how her and I have been honored to take over the 15-point plan podcast. So Jacqueline's on the call with us today. Jacqueline, say hello. Tell them a little bit about yourself.
Hey, hi everyone.
Yeah, we were just recording for the podcast, and I was telling Ryan that I'm doing an 86-hour fast right now. And so everyone in my office, it's 12 o'clock here. So they're all eating lunch. I'm like, I just want to hide in my office because I don't want to smell all their food. So I was like, want me to come on the call with you? And he was like, yeah, come on. So we just had an awesome conversation about goals and oh, Ben, water. Yeah, no broth. No broth. Just water and lots of tea.
Yeah,
Tea. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Jacqueline's going for it. And Jacqueline Banning, who just hopped on, he's been doing fasting a little bit. And we've talked about fasting. I did a 4-day fast a couple weeks ago. So we've talked about that on this call.
Cool.
And the benefits of it. The benefits are through the roof. There are so many benefits to fasting, both with weight loss, but with your mental endurance.
Mm-hmm.
So many. So I couldn't recommend it more. And like you said, we really planned our podcast recording perfectly, because my goal was to go into the new year and have even more value for you guys on this call. And one of the ways to do that was to just do more research. And to do that, we got the 15-point plan podcast. So I'm studying more about health and wellness to deliver through the podcast, which I can then share with you guys on this call here, and we can continue to grow this community. Today, we're going to wrap up the section on time, but we're also going to jump into goals and the goal planning that we just talked about. And we're going to talk about smart goals versus dumb goals. You might be looking at me like, well, what the heck are you talking about? But I wanted to share those because it sparked a really cool conversation with Jacqueline and I think you guys will get a lot from that as well. But first, I want to tell you guys a quick story in relationship to time, because Jolene used to point this out about me, and I never really, it didn't sink in until like a couple years later. But for those that don't know, my previous career was a DJ, and I was a traveling and performing DJ for many years. And I played Caribbean music, dancehall, reggae, hip hop music. And if you look at a DJ that's in my field of work, like, we don't just let a song, like, you guys know the average length. Yes, Emma, I used to have dreadlocks down to my butt, but do you know the average length of a song? Like, just somebody throw out a number, the average length of a song right now. Sheila's saying 3 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, 3
5
minutes.
minutes. 5 minutes.
Minutes, 5 minutes, something like that. 3 to 5 minutes is the average length of a song. So if you're a DJ and you're letting a song play the whole time, you got 3 to 5 minutes to come up with the next song. But here's the thing. No DJ that is worth anything, no good DJ is going to let a whole song play. They're going to play the hottest part of the song. They're going to play the hook and maybe a little bit of the verse, and they're going to mix in the next song. So when we were DJing, I would play a song on average for 30 to 45 seconds and mix the next one and mix the next one and mix the next one for 2 hours. And one day Jillian was like, how the heck do you do that? Like, how are you so far ahead? How are you? And it made me think, like, in my previous career, I was planning things down to the minute, like literally down to the minute, because I had to as a DJ. Like, it's a matter of a switch and a snap of the fingers that you will lose a crowd if you're playing the wrong song and you're playing it too long. Like, Michael's nodding his head like, yeah. I mean, it literally can happen within 5 or 10 seconds where you're playing the wrong song, you let it keep playing, you're going to lose the crowd. So you have to act quick. And I realized how much that impacted me in my real estate career from the very beginning, and how that's going to impact us in this conversation around time, because we tend to think in time in maybe like the day. And then we get down into like, okay, it's my lead gen time, right? 9 till noon. That's the 3 freaking hours. Like, we are going to fail if we chunk things into 3-hour chunks. So then we go, okay, how can we chunk it into 1-hour chunks? But even in that, I mean, that's 60 minutes. To me, that's 60 chunks. So the reason I'm bringing this up with you guys today is so that we can look at time in a different way. Now look at it on the opposite. Ed Milet, one of my favorite business coaches, right? I think him and Brendan Burchard are like battling neck and neck on who the #1 business coach is in the world right now. You guys ever heard how Ed Milet talks about time, though? Ed Milet claims he gets 3 days in one. And of course, everyone's like, okay, Ed, tell me how. And he's like, look, when you get up early enough and you go to bed late enough and you get your dialed amount of sleep time in, he's like, I have my first chunk of the day, which is he breaks his entire day into 4 to 5 hour chunks. So what he does is his entire day is now broken into about 4-hour chunks, and he gets his full day's work in that 4 hours. But then he has 2 or 3 more of those. So he's like, my first day 1, is from like I think it's 5 till 9. The next one is 10 till noon, and the next one is 1 till 5. So he's not looking at his day like one day. He's looking at his day as 3 days in one. And what happens is that 3 days in one, now he's compounding. And he's like, the average guy's working 5 days a week. I just worked 15 days because of my time hacking and his ability to fit more into the day by breaking things down smaller and smaller. And what I'm learning is the more we can break time into smaller sections and not look at our entire day, but rather look at that 1 hour and look at that 1 minute and break that down into smaller chunks. If we can act and operate on those time frames rather than just the day or the 3-hour lead gen or the 8 till noon before lunch time frame, but no, rather the minute by minute, and act efficiently and accordingly, we're going to get a lot more done than the average human being. So I wanted to share that in regards to time before we talk about goals. But what's going through your guys' mind on time, on this idea of 30 to 45 seconds? How do I do that? Or on Ed Milet's framework of breaking his day into really 3 days in one?
I mean, having that morning was something that I always, because I was in the same world as you. Like, I was in clubs and restaurants and like, oh yeah, I'm not a morning person, whatever. But now that I'm more and more following the 15-point plan, waking up early, like doing those things, I had showings done. I had a buyer's appointment this morning. And before my girlfriend texted me back, good morning. And I felt like I had that thought of, I don't know if anybody else when they were in college comes back home and your parents are like, oh, good afternoon when you wake up. That would like played in my head. I'm like, oh no. I'm like, but really I got a lot of stuff done before anybody else was even up. So it's crazy how powerful it is. Like, I had the whole day to get, double the work done at
Right.
least.
Yeah, I agree with that, Banning, because that's the 15-point and working out in the morning. That was a huge win for me too, is like by doing that all before 7:30 when I start my workday. When I'm done with my workday, if I need a little extra work time, I don't feel bad about doing it because I have that extra space. And then 2, I get to figure out what I'm doing for the rest of the day. I mean, sometimes it's already planned, but I don't have to be like, oh my God, now I have to go work out.
Yeah. And we've stacked so many wins. Like, first thing, if we have stacked so many wins when we operate like that, Benny. Like, when you get up and you've done your workout, you've done your meditation, you've done your journaling, you've drank like 3 bottles of water already. You got your nutrition planned out, your supplements planned out. You probably listen to some podcast either at the gym or on the drive there. This isn't just like a get out of a rut thing anymore. This is how we become superhuman. Like, I really believe that, Jacqueline, this 15-point plan and like the conversations that we're having here is not just like a let's feel kind of good. Let's not get into a rut. No, I think we're talking about let's perform at our highest levels and be the person, Jacqueline, that our dreams require. Guys, she blew me away with this quote today when we were recording the podcast. I've heard stuff like this, but I don't know. You hear something one time and like, okay, then you hear it like 10 times, but then somebody says it at the right time. You're like, that is freaking magic. Like, Jacqueline hit me with that, like, when we talk about our goals. So we're going to transition a little bit. When we talk about our goals, especially now we're towards the end of this year, we're going into the new year. We just had our business planning. We got our vision boards hanging up. Are we making goals that are smart or dumb? And we'll talk about what that means. But are these dream-driven goals, guys? Like, are these goals that, yeah, I want to sell 100 homes because like Jacqueline's going to sell 150 and I just want to be cool like Jacqueline? Or are they dream-driven? And are these goals really just a vehicle to help us become the person that we want to be? Are we setting a goal like the person I am, or setting a goal, but there's no freaking way I can get to that goal if I don't become that person? So I want to have Jacqueline share some of the things that she shared, but first I'll go through those smart versus dumb goals with you guys. So a SMART goal, right? These are acronyms. A SMART goal. SMART, S for specific, M for measurable, A for achievable, R for realistic, and T is time bound or timely, right? Let me pop that into the chat. Where did my chat go? There it is. Okay. And now you probably have heard those before, right? But if you were on our partner Brendan Burchard's call a couple months ago, Brendan kind of broke that down, Emma. Brendan was like, look, these SMART goals are super cool, but I like the dumb goals. And I saw everybody on the call like, tell me more, tell me more. So a dumb goal, right? DUMB. D for dream driven. U for uplifting. M for method driven, and D for dream driven, and B, behavior triggered. And this is just a different conversation of goals now, right? Smart versus dumb. But the first one that stood out to me is dream driven. And maybe a dream driven goal isn't going to be time bound. It's just like, one day I'm going to be freaking college football player at Notre Dame. Rudy?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it doesn't have a time measurement to it. But Jacqueline just hit me so perfectly with what she said. Jacqueline, can you tell me a little bit more about that, like that transformation quote that you had, and like becoming the person that our dreams require? Tell this group what we talked about.
Yeah, so over the years, I've always, for the most part, I've doubled my goal every year. And so like my first year in real estate, I sold 52, and then so I doubled it, like I rounded. So it wasn't like 104, it was 100. And I sold 87, and then it was 200, and I sold 137. And then there was one year where I didn't double my goal because I kind of got annoyed that I wasn't hitting my goals, or I probably listened to some smart thing, and I set like what I felt like was a realistic goal. And that was the only year that we didn't grow. And I really noticed it. And it's kind of funny too, because I also have done a coat drive for this nonprofit locally for the past, like this is our seventh year doing it. And every single year since we started it 7 years ago, we have doubled our goal. And then they told us last year, like, don't double it again, because it would have been like 4,000 coats, and like Vancouver, Washington isn't that big. And so they were basically like, yeah, like don't double your goal. Well, this is the first year that we're probably like, I don't know that we're going to hit our goal. Like it's looking like we're not going to hit our goal of 2,000. And so when I heard Brendan Burchard talk about this like dumb goal, it kind of articulated what I started to think about, that year that I didn't grow was the only year I hadn't doubled my goal. And what I realized was that the reason why I like doubling a goal and setting like goals that like the person I am today, like can't hit that goal. Like Jacqueline of today can't hit it. It's because one of my big whys and like my drivers in terms of like my motivation and everything is actually transformation. It's personal growth. It's me growing as a leader, as a human, and to really see transformation in my life. And the goal is just the vehicle that almost like forces that in my life if I let it. And so when I set a dream driven goal that is like something that seems so far-fetched to me, it forces me to think differently. So I can't achieve that goal with the same things that got me to 200. The same thing that got me to 250 isn't going to get me to 500, right? So I have to think about like, who would I have to become as a leader, as a CEO, as a, human in order to achieve that goal. And I love the behavior triggered part of the dumb goal, because that to me is what the purpose of a goal is, to inform me of who I need to be and how I need to show up. the behaviors that I need to have in my life, in my day, in my plan. And so I loved the concept of a dumb goal with a smart plan. And so I figure out like my dumb goal, which is like to me the dream, the far-fetched goal, but then I do come up with a smart plan. Like I break that down and I'm like, okay, this is what I will have to do, and this is who I would need to be in order to do those things in my life in order to achieve that dream goal. So the goal informs me of who I need to become, who, and then what does that person do? What are the behaviors that person does? And for me, that's how I guess I just always set goals that way and didn't realize I was doing it. And so then when Brandon did that call, it articulated for me, oh, that's why. So when I set the realistic goal, it wasn't forcing me to grow. And so then we didn't grow because your business grows to the extent that you do. And so it was just really cool to hear him talk about it. And it kind of gave me permission to set the dumb goal, and to have a real conversation, with the people around me about what that means too, because when you're a leader, it's not just about you. So, yeah, those are kind of my thoughts on it. I don't know if you want me to expand on anything, but
I took so many notes when we were talking, but I love that, right? Like the goal informs your behavior. And if we have this big dream driven goal, it's going to kind of tell us what we got to do. And we got to become the person that our dreams require. So, we always do a meditation on this call, and just 2-3 minutes of us being able to sit alone with our breath. Maybe that can be our focus for our meditation, is asking ourselves that question. Are we being the person that our dreams require? We just wrote down some goals for the new year, some business goals, some health goals, personal goals, relationship goals. Are those dream-driven goals? And are we the person that those dreams require? Yeah, be, do, have, Jacqueline. We got to be the person that we want to be so that we can do the things that we need to do and have the things that we want, right? So let's think about that in our meditation, if you're open for it. If you got something else on your mind, that's cool too. But Jacqueline, every Wednesday we do a meditation. It's 12:27. So we're going to go for 3 minutes, which will put us at 12:30. If you guys got to hop off because you got other obligations, I totally understand. If you can stick around and share some takeaways, even better. But all you got to do is turn your camera off, put your microphone on mute. And remember, I start the time, so you don't have to watch the time. All you got to do is close your eyes, focus on your breath. Now that everyone's cameras are off, I'll go ahead and turn mine off. I'll start the timer. So again, you don't have to worry about the time. In 3 minutes, I'll let you know that our time is up. We'll come back together and we'll carry on with our day. So just sit with that. Are we being the person that our dreams require? Whenever you're ready, go ahead, turn your camera back on. That is such a powerful question. What a great way to just check in with ourselves. You could ask yourself that in the morning before you go to work or at the end of the day. Are we being the person that our dreams require? Anybody care to share any thoughts? Yeah, Banning, it's a super hard question.
It's a question you can't hide from. Like,
Mhm.
you know the answer. Sometimes you don't want to say it to yourself, but like, am I really being like am I really being that guy or that girl? Like, not always. Maybe sometimes, maybe not at all. Some days, like, yeah, it's a hard question to play with.
It's a good form of accountability for ourselves, right? Jacqueline, were you going to say something?
I mean, it is a hard question, and I just put a quote that I recently heard that like really kind of stood out to me, and I really noticed, like, I think especially if you value like integrity and authenticity in your life, you're probably asking yourself that like on a subconscious level more than others, but it's like the truth. You want the truth, and because then we can actually make adjustments if we face and like acknowledge the truth. But when you're living, numbed, or like you're living just kind of with your head in the sand, or like you don't want to look, you don't want to, as Brendon Burchard always talks about, like you don't want to open your mail kind of thing, then yeah, you can't really make changes. And so for me, I think over time it's caused me to make, changes that I never would have, maybe imagined. Like I gave up alcohol a year ago, and it was part of that because it was like the person that my dream requires isn't like going out, and sitting at happy hour for 3 hours with friends, like getting drunk. Like that's not, how I want to show up. And so it's like different things like that over time. It's really caused me to have to take an honest look at myself and make really important changes to who I am and how I show up.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think it's a really good point. I think that we all want to continue to grow. I think that's something that's probably pretty clear within our organization and within this community, is that like we all seek growth. We all want to continue to grow. But and you said ownership allows you to take action. Awareness, right? We talked about that a million times on this call. It's just the simple awareness of the things that don't serve us anymore and the things that allow us to perform at a higher level and pushing down on those. So this was a good conversation. Yeah, thank you, everybody. And thank you, Jacqueline, for joining us today and for what we've talked about with building our goals going into the new year. So let's dream big, right? Let's keep dreaming big, and let's keep becoming a little bit more every day, just that person that our dreams require. Any final thoughts before I wrap up today's call? All right,
Thanks for
everybody.
letting me crash your party.
Of course, anytime. Thank you, everybody, for joining. We will see y'all next week. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, everyone.